On today's show, please, I am begging you, never listen to my opinions on how a series is going to go. The Padres win 3 out of 4 against the Atlanta Braves. Seth Lugo shines again. We get a whole lot of runs from Nelson Cruz and just overall good vibes. What to take away from it going forward? You know what you're listening to, guys. So let's get on started.
You are Locked On Padres, your daily San Diego Padres podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Padres podcast, which is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day for Monday, April 10th. Wow, that we're this far already. April 10th, ladies and gentlemen. As always, I'm your host with sometimes, occasionally, but certainly not always the most, Javier Reyes. You can find me on Twitter at Javipeno, Javiipeno, or at LO_Padres for all Padres. I've been live tweeting all the games and stuff, posting a whole bunch of memes. Go check that out for sure. And then also, if you want to see me and my new fresh cut, I got a new haircut. Go check that out. Locked On Padres on YouTube. You can also see the Tatis bobblehead and whatever shirt I'm wearing, which is a shirt I've worn before. It's one of my favorite shirts. It's a moon grapefruit. That's right. I don't know why. It's just very spacey and really cool. Thank you, as always, for making Locked On Padres your first listen every day. Remember, we're free and available on all platforms. And today's episode is also brought to you by, been talking about it for a few weeks, Ultimate Baseball GM. If you've ever dreamed of becoming an MLB GM, well, let me tell you, this game is definitely for you. To download the game, just visit ultimatebaseballgm.com or look it up in the App Store. Our listeners get a 100% free boost to their franchise when using the promo code LOCKEDON in all caps in the game. So be sure to check that out, ladies and gentlemen. And for today's episode, oh man, we got a good old series recap. I feel like I haven't done one of these, but I probably have. And you know, on Friday's episode, it was a preview with Jake Mastriani, who did a great job, and it was so much fun having him on over at Locked On Braves, and we talked about the series, what our predictions were, and on the pod, you can check it out on my personal Twitter feed right now, I said that I thought the Padres were going to get their butts kicked. I didn't think that would be an indictment on the season or that it would be anything to panic over, but I thought, almost because I'm so obsessed with narratives as a media person, I guess, that I just so vividly, like, I saw on my crystal ball that, you know, the big storyline this week was going to be, wow, underperforming Mets and Padres, the darlings of baseball, spending all that money. Well, they're both under 500 right now, and they're facing each other off. That's what I thought was going to happen, and especially because the Atlanta Braves are a very good team. And that absolutely did not happen. And we're going to start by talking about yesterday's game, which was great. I actually think that there are two giant overreactions for me so far that I think are worth, that I think I'm starting to commit to as part of the overreaction emporium. And one of them is Mr. Seth Lugo. Puerto Rican power, of course. I haven't talked about that enough, by the way. I probably forgot because, unfortunately, he was in the World Baseball Classic. I probably forgot to mention that, but of course I'm rooting for him for that. And he was pretty solid in this game. 6 innings, giving up 1 earned run on 5 hits. He did walk 4, and he struck out 5. His ERA is a resounding 1.29 this year, and he's gone 7 innings in his first start and then 6 innings in this one. So for a guy who's been primarily used almost entirely used as a reliever throughout his career, I think that's pretty impressive. The fact that he's got 7 innings and 6 innings, and especially against the Atlanta Braves. Sure, he walks some batters, but this is a very good offense and whatnot. But I liked what I saw for the most part, and I think that if there was an overreaction for me to have, this is one of the two. There's actually 3 that I have, and I think that this is one of the good ones. One of the good ones, I guess I would say, with Lugo. You know, he didn't necessarily generate a whole ton of swing and miss stuff, but on his kind of wipeout pitches that we're kind of used to seeing, or at least people who are familiar with his profile before, you know, with his curveball, he generated 5 whiffs, which is nice, 11 in total if you also count his fastball. Sure, the velocity and stuff is down for certain pitches, especially, you know, his slider and changeup, which he only threw a couple times anyway. 10 for the slider, 1 for the changeup. But, you know, spin rate stuff is up. He's got a decent break on those pitches. The fastball and curveball just have a lot of bite to him. And I know Pitching Ninja actually put out one of the curveballs that he actually threw. The put away stuff potential on Seth Lugo, I think, is really, really high. And I think that's why maybe the Padres are so interested in him. I think that one of my opinions on him heading into the offseason when they had made that deal was, and granted, this could be lazy analysis, but one of my impressions was a lot of teams seem interested in Seth Lugo. And I think that they were interested in him as a starter potentially. And I think that maybe one of the reasons he might have chosen the Padres is while it is a 2-year deal for not like a crap ton of money. I think it is $15 million. And so that's about $7.5 per year. Maybe part of the selling point was, we'll give you this amount of money, but there is an option. And maybe that's what appealed to him, that if he succeeds, he will be able to opt out of his contract, go and test free agency and be like, hey, I'm a starting caliber pitcher now, which amounts to more money. And if it didn't work out, the $7.5 million a year is pretty good for a reliever anyway. So he could just, opt back in and stay for another year as the Padres or whatever. So maybe that was the thinking. I don't know for sure. I might just be spitballing here, but I really love that everyone was interested in him. And so far he's been great for the Padres. And it's the type of thing that this team needs. Just back-end starters who don't have to be aces or anything like that, but just be really solid. And again, yes, the 4 walks aren't great, but and it is also, this was a blowout game. They won 10-2. We're going to talk about that in a second. It's still really, really cool to see. And I'm really happy. I'm really happy about this going. Nick Martinez wasn't as awesome, but I think that Lugo is showing, hey, maybe the Padres did have a little bit of an idea of what they were doing this offseason, even if their 3-headed Hydra, with Musgrove and Snell and Darvish, that everyone said, well, what about the back of the rotation? Maybe Lugo, they were feeling really confident about. And so far, he has just absolutely dazzled, and it's been awesome to see. But that wasn't the only story of the game, of course. It was the offense. And it's funny because I tweeted, actually, before the game, if I'm not mistaken. No, I'm not mistaken. Of course I did. I do everything on time. I tweeted this morning, or actually yesterday morning, that the Padres are 27th heading into this game in batting average, 197, and 29th in WRC+, a mark of 61, which is about 39% worse than the average, with runners in scoring position this season. That's bad. That's really bad. And while I don't think that those numbers were ever going to stay the same, it was just a nice reflection of how they just haven't been hitting as well with runners in scoring position. And boy, oh boy, I imagine that those numbers are going to change dramatically. Nelson Cruz now on the season hitting 350 because of an absolutely spectacular game. He goes 3 for 4 in this one with a home run, a double, and 6 RBIs. That's right, Nelly Cruz, baby. Absolutely love to see it. Just truly phenomenal stuff. The entire Padres offense got in on this one. The pitcher for the Atlanta Braves was clearly just not all that ready. Dylan Dodd, making his second start of this season, got absolutely creamed. Despite having an okay outing his first time against the Cardinals, the Padres were jumping on all of his first pitches, basically all night. And I actually tweeted out how I texted a friend of mine where I was like, I like that it's working, don't get me wrong, but I kind of want to just can we take 1 pitch, maybe 2? Make the guy work a little bit. I just worry because one of the things in my life that drives me insane is first pitch outs. It'll just always anger me. I know it's one of those things where you love it when it works, hate it when it doesn't, but it drives me insane. And they just kept doing that the whole night. So I tweeted out the Cowabunga thing with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. Just being like, all right, Cowabunga it is. Let's just go after the first pitches. The Padres offense was absolutely exemplary in this game. You get a home run as well from Trent Grisham, who would be my other overreaction of the season so far, one of the good ones. So Seth Lugo and Trent Grisham. Grisham hit an absolute bomb in this game. It was the hardest hit ball, I believe, of the evening, if I can just check that really quickly. Exit velocity of 109.3 miles per hour, expected batting average of 990, great launch angle of 29. He crushed it, and all of his home runs that he has hit for the most part this year have been crushed, which is a really good sign. He's been a lot more aggressive in the batter's box. He hasn't just been waiting for those little fastballs that nip the corner, right? He does have a good eye, don't get me wrong. He is able to draw walks, and I think that's why you sometimes see him at the top of the order, especially with his speed and whatnot, but he's looking closer to 2020 and beginning of 2021 Grisham than 2022 Grisham, for sure. Just a lot more aggressive. I still think that some of his stuff in batting, I still have fears that pitchers can adapt to him and that they might see based on his swing, just don't throw it kind of any hanging pitches, kind of in the bottom middle of the zone or anything like that. But at least for the start, he's been phenomenal for what he's supposed to be. He does not have to be that tremendous. 243 batting average on the season is nothing to laugh at, and a 342 on base, 485 slugging. If those numbers hold, we're talking about a top 15 outfielder and possibly even higher because of the defense. I don't know if that's going to hold, but in fairness, Grisham is young and he has done something like this before back in the aforementioned 2020 and 2021 season. So it's not totally unprecedented. I'm still skeptical because I just thought he was really a mess last year, and it scared me that he was basically Cody Bellinger, but for the Padres. But if he can keep this up, man, I'm not gonna object to it. It's really, really good so far, man. Let me tell you, the vibes are good for the Padres. The vibes are absolutely phenomenal. But before we continue talking about the rest of this game and the rest of the series, guys, I've been gushing so much already. Let me talk to you about something that else has really good vibes, and that is Ultimate Baseball GM. Talked about them on the top of the show. You gotta check it out, guys. You got it. It's the coolest game I've played in a while, at least when it comes to the baseball world. In fairness, the world in general. You know, I got my Sonic Frontiers, my Marvel Snap, my One Piece Odyssey. You know, I play a little bit over. I play a lot of games. I'm a big game head. But this has been a lot of fun, and I've always thought, you know, I could just love to play GM stuff. I like the kind of, not robotic, but the kind of, you know, oversight feeling of it. And that's what they do here. And it's really a lot of fun. You have to hire the right coaches and staff. You have to manage personalities. You have to, you know, test out facilities. You have to have a new stadium. You have to manage finances. There's a bunch of divas that you have to manage. You have to sign free agents and injuries and all. They got you covered with everything. So all this in a challenging and realistic game world. Ultimate Baseball GM is completely free. That's right, free and playable offline. Play on the go as you want and when you want to. Locked On Padres listeners, you also get, as I mentioned at the top of the show, a 100% free boost to your franchise when using the promo code Locked On in the game store. So make sure to check it out. To download the game, just go visit probaseballgm.com, scan the code, or look it up in the app stores or Google Plays or whatever you have. Go check that out. probaseballgm.com. Ultimate Baseball GM, start your dynasty today. Definitely going to want to do that, guys. And also, I got another thing to tell you guys about. Rocket Money. Rocket. You know, the Houston Rockets may not have made the playoffs, and they're not exactly the best thing in the world. But Rocket Money, man, they're a different story. You know, they're really cool. They're really cool. Let me tell you, man, they're really cool. You could try it free for 30 days as well, just enough time to try it. And then let me make sure I actually read this properly because I'm not reading this as best as possible because I'm really bad with money. You know, like I'm just not the best. I'm really not, for sure. And I think that this is very helpful for a lot of people. I just started downloading it and checking it out myself. It's a personal finance app that finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions. So like, you know, some that you might not even know about. Maybe it's a streaming service. I don't know. I mean, that helps me out every now and then when I just like check my credit card and I'm like, oh, wow, I did not mean to spend another bunch of money on that. Well, it can help you out and it helps you lower your bills all in one place. Over 80% of people have subscriptions they forgot about. That's crazy, and chances are you're one of them. You know, Stars app, maybe Paramount Plus just to watch like Picard, right? Like that one show, but when the one show's gone, you forget to unsubscribe. Well, Rocket Money will quickly and easily find your subscriptions for you, and for any you don't want to pay for anymore, just hit cancel, and Rocket Money will cancel for you. It's that easy. It also helps you manage all your finances in one place and automatically categorize all of your expenses so you can easily track your budget in real time and also get alerted if anything looks off. Over 3 million people have used Rocket Money, guys. Saving. Whew, it's one of those days, guys. Saving the average person up to $720 a year. So stop throwing your money today. Cancel unwanted subscriptions and manage your expenses the easy way by going to rocketmoney.com/LockedOnMLB. That's rocketmoney.com/LockedOnMLB. Rocketmoney.com. Go check it out. I actually forgot over the course of that ad read to put up the little Ultimate GM thing. So I'm going to put that up for just a couple seconds so that people don't get mad at me over at Locked On. But we continue talking about this series, guys. Really weird episode so far. For the rest of this game, for the most part, the only batter that really didn't do much here was Jake Cronenworth. He has looked a lot of what he was last year so far. I haven't seen anything necessary in his approach or his overall swing that has led me to believe that is going to change immediately, but it is still a little bit early. But in this game, he doesn't do much. He strikes out twice, just going 1 for 5. Not the worst in the world, but not great. Not a lot of multi-hit games for him recently. But We also get, aside from the home run from Nelson Cruz, we just a lot of fun stuff in this game. Manny Machado going 3 for 5. He's starting to heat up, despite being the only player in the starting lineup to not have a home run yet. That's got to be coming soon. But Juan Soto, he has a double in this game as well as a walk, which is very good. His average is 216 on the season right now, or 182 actually. I think it might be. If I'm not mistaken. Yeah, 182, but he's got a 325 on base and a 394 slugging. So, it's been very all or nothing for him, I think, so far. And that's not great. Juan Soto is clearly still trying to, get back into the swing of things. Hopefully he does, so Padres fans stop slandering him. And then also Ha-Seong Kim hit a home run in this game that had an expected batting average, if I'm not mistaken. Let me see if I could pull it up real quickly. Let's see if I find it here. Expected batting average of 160. It actually looks like it bounces off of Eddie Rosario's glove, but it turns out to be a home run, second of the year. And who cares? It was supposed to be, according to the broadcast that I was watching for ESPN, it was supposed to be a home run in 17 out of 30 ballparks. So who cares? That was really fun, guys. Awesome stuff. And in terms of the rest of the series, we already talked about, or at least briefly, in that little Locked On video you guys could have checked out, with the Thursday game that the Padres played when they lost the walk-off. Just to go over that really quickly, Blake Snell, early season Snell, just not the best. 3 2/3, he allowed 4 runs on 6 hits. He looked bad. He's got 7.8 ERA on the season, 2.13 whip. Obviously, it's early, but since we've seen this before, I'm fairly confident saying, yeah, looks like the same old usual with Blake Snell. Going to be a little bit of time before he ramps up. Thankfully, guys like Lugo and guys like Wacha, who we'll talk about in a second, have stepped up their game. And they've managed to be dominant. Nabil Crismatt gets tagged with the loss in this game. He's got 16.2 ERA on the season. He hasn't been great. Literally, the 2 innings that he did in yesterday's game, the blowout of only 1 hit ball and 2 Ks, that rate lowered his ERA by 6. So now it's at 10.13. But Crismatt was really frustrated. Orlando Arcia ends up hitting the walk-off kind of hit in this one, which was really unfortunate because, the lineup still produced. Manny Machado went 2 for 5 in this one, struck out twice, but Bogarts was good. He drew 2 walks. Soto was able to draw a walk despite going hitless. Grisham, he struck out 3 times, which is unfortunate, but he did draw a walk as well. Matt Carpenter had a nice day with a home run as well. He had an absolute bomb in this one. Same thing for Cronenworth. So, Padres offense is getting there. They've actually been really good at home runs this year. Heading into yesterday's game, actually, it looks like 6th in the league. So that's been what's been carrying them, but they need to raise that batting average, a little bit of on-base stuff. Soto, we're still waiting for you, my guy. It looks like literally everybody in the Padres lineup has kind of got it going, including Nelson Cruz at his age of 48, right? Has got it going, but Juan Soto has not yet. So we're going to have to talk about that at some point, whether or not we should be so hasty to extend Juan Soto. I still think you want to extend him. But in fairness, his Padres career has not exactly been what it was made out to be or expected to be. So he hasn't been that fantastic. But that's basically all I have to say about that game. And then Friday's game was an interesting one because while Nick Martinez wasn't great in this one, he goes 4 2/3, allowing 4 earned runs on 4 hits. 4 hits isn't that bad, but the 5 walks, and this can happen with Martinez sometimes. Guys just don't jump on his changeup, and then they just take the walks. They'd rather do that instead of playing for contact, which is what he tends to do. But they end up getting the W in this one. Hader gets the save. He's been lights out so far, basically the most reliable reliever. Brent Honeywell is worth discussing. And as someone tweeted at me, longtime listener of the show, my boy at Joshua D. Landis on Twitter asked me, question for the next pod, should Jay Groom be in the bullpen on the big league squad? This is interesting because I know that this was kind of prompted. This question came after Nabil Crismatt blew that game, and he just hasn't been very good. And overall, the bullpen has been a little bit messy in the early going. Jay Groom really did impress in spring training, and according to basically every report. So I was a little bit surprised that he didn't make the team, and I think that it's still a wait and see thing. And I think that with Nabil Crismatt, and I didn't realize this before, but he doesn't have any options left. Same thing for Brent Honeywell. I think it's going to take a little bit more for those guys to get sent down. I think between the two, Honeywell seems to have the upside and a lot of movement on his pitches, especially sometimes. So I think that Honeywell, and I would also be really happy for Honeywell, a guy who's a former top like prospect that just got hurt a whole bunch and his upside just kind of went down. I think he was like one of the first round picks in one of the drafts one year. Maybe he can find a lane for himself as a relief specialist, and so far he has done that. 1.59 ERA on the year, if I'm not mistaken. And he's looked good. He's gotten some strikeouts. He hasn't walked too many batters. So if there's one to send down, it would be Crismatt, but you wouldn't be sending him down since you don't have any options left. So I don't know. I think we got to wait a little bit longer. And I think that, with injuries and when things kind of transpire, it's such a long season that I would be shocked if Jay Groom didn't make an appearance at some point, given how well he had pitched in spring training and how highly, seemingly, the team thought of him. So I would give it a little bit of time and not freak out, because in fairness, Nabil Crismatt, not even last year, but the year before, like a really solid, steady arm. So if he starts showing Crismatt more of what he's shown early on in the season, and especially gets teed up more and maybe off-speed stuff, hitters aren't biting on it the way they did last year, then yeah, I think that you might see Jay Groom get called up. But another wrinkle in this is to see, all right, well, what happens when Robert Suarez comes back? That's another part of this, right? When Robert Suarez comes back, if guy who's always hurt, Drew Pomeranz, if he ever comes back, does that throw a wrench in this? So that's what I think are the bigger questions rather than just Nabil Crismatt. Like, which player is going to get sent down? Domingo Tapia is probably one of those guys that's going to be sent down when Suarez or Pomeranz comes back. So it's a big question, but I'd give it another week. If Crismatt gets hit up one more time, then I think we have to start discussing the Jay Groom thing. But that's just me. Yeah, so the Padres did pull this one out, though. If I'm not mistaken, let's see who hit the home run in this one. Who was it? We got some singles from Bogarts, Jake Cronenworth. Yeah, Nelson Cruz was the big RBI guy in this game. Hey, Nelly's back, man. The eye surgery, maybe that was a big deal for him. Maybe that's all it took. That is really, really exciting, though. And they clearly trust him because they've batted him fourth. This isn't some guy that they bat low in the lineup or even like semi-low in the lineup. Him and Carpenter both, clearly Bob Melvin trusts a lot, and I think he's utilized them both great, which is one of the things I talked about in the preseason. I loved that you're giving Melvin some options. You know what I mean? You're giving this kind of interesting DH platoon, with Carpenter and Cruz and veteranship, right? I just think that he's going to love utilizing those players in the right spot against lefties and righties and spending what arsenal the other pitcher has. I think that that's really, really, really cool. So that so far has paid out really well. Nelly Cruz, absolute beast. And I love seeing him do well. Raked in Friday's game, and he raked in Sunday night's game. But before we get into the kind of last game and a very cool pitching performance that kind of surprised me a tad, I think, to be quite honest with you. We're going to talk about that in just a second, guys, to close out the show. But before we do that, our new sponsor, So Rare. 2 syllables. Is a revolutionary fantasy baseball game and marketplace transforming fans into owners. That's right. It's basically like fantasy baseball, except it's like trading cards. Is that a good way to put it? I think that's a pretty decent way to put it. It's really cool, though, and I like what I've seen from them so far, for sure. You should check it out, guys. Unlike other fantasy baseball platforms, So Rare managers truly own their fantasy experience, collecting, buying, selling, and competing with other players against global opponents to win epic rewards. Win or lose, you still own your cards. That's right, there's no cost to play. Don't worry. I remember back in the day, the Madden and the FIFA Ultimate Teams, you're worried about losing your players because of these contract things. Don't worry. If you pull that triple platinum Fernando Tatis Jr. bat flip version or whatever the heck is out there, don't worry. You're not going to lose it if you lose a couple games, so don't worry about that, guys. And plus, the more you win, the more you advance, collecting increasingly powerful cards and accessing next-level competition and rewards. Very cool. Very cool. And also, So Rare recently partnered with MLB All-Stars Juan Soto and Julio Rodriguez to serve as brand ambassadors. So it's very, very important for me to talk about this, man. It's our boy Soto. Come on now. So definitely check that out, guys. It's really, really a lot of fun. Head to sorare.com/lockedon. That's spelled SORARE.com to draft your team of free player cards. Set your lineup and start competing today to win epic rewards. Again, that's sorare.com/lockedon to start playing today. Very cool. And there's some really good prizes in there. You can meet players and stuff. Really cool stuff. Go check out So Rare, guys. Let's talk about the last game. that happened this weekend, ladies and gentlemen, as we kind of wind down this show. The Padres won Saturday's game. It was the one game with not too much runs. It was actually a pretty slow game in a lot of ways. But let me tell you, if waka 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 waka, I forgot to bring my Pac-Man guy down here. I forgot, I have him. I totally forgot. That is perfect. Starting next episode, I am going to put Pac-Man right next to Tatis because we have to with Waka 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 Boy. In this game, 6 innings, no earned runs, only 2 hits allowed, and 10 strikeouts for Mr. Michael Wacha. Another A.J. Preller masterclass? I don't know, folks. I don't know. It's worth at least bringing up. It's worth bringing up. Michael Wacha was brought to the team pretty late in the grand scheme of things. Not that that's a damnation of a player. I don't think that necessarily, kills a guy or kills his value or kills his potential. But it was still worth pointing out that they brought him pretty late. Maybe he was looking for more money. I don't know what it was exactly, right? But it was really, really exciting that the Padres brought him in because you knew you're relying a lot on Lugo and Martinez. It would be nice if you can be like, all right, the back end of this rotation has at least a guy who, while his advanced stats, the expected ERA, all that stuff, and the fact that basically most of his career, it feels like he's been a guy that we're all waiting for the big season to finally happen because he's been in the league for so long, it feels like, right? From a very young age. And starting with the Cardinals, a team that certainly knows how to develop their pitchers and develop players and has good prospects come up and whatnot. Although, I'm starting to wonder if the Cardinals know what they're doing with pitching, though. I will say with pitching, I don't know about the Cardinals. But with Michael Wacha, he had a lot of potential for a long time. And it just seems like he never came through on that, whether it be injury or just getting kind of hit up. And in this game, he was phenomenal. I mean, phenomenal. The velocity was all good. All that stuff was good. Spin rate stuff was all normal. Horizontal break, whatever you want to bring up. He generated 16 whiffs in this game, and 8 of them came on his changeup. The put-away pitch. Wacha looked awesome, guys, and against a really good Braves team. So Wacha indeed. He ate those batters on Atlanta like they were the power pellets. It was awesome. It was absolutely awesome to see, and I didn't really expect it. Granted, the expected ERA, just me pulling up Savant and being like, it's a full run higher, he's going to be bad, is a little bit lazy analysis on my part. But don't get me wrong. Look, Wacha doesn't have to do too much. Wacha and Lugo do not have to do too much for this team. And it's possible that in the early going, if you want to have another overreaction, it would be maybe this Padres rotation is going to be a lot better than people thought in terms of depth. Maybe that's the secret sauce that's going on here. Because once Joe Musgrove comes back, what if they're like, hey, Lugo's just going to be the 5. Maybe they just want to do a 5-man rotation. Maybe every now and then you can throw in Martinez. I still think that he works better in a reliever role. I like him there. I just like it when you're only facing him one time through the order. I like the changeup as a put-away pitch, that he's not worrying about having to last longer into games. I like him there more. And if you need to, he can start. But with Wacha, this was just, it's good stuff, man. I absolutely was blown away, quite frankly, with his start. I don't know if it's going to continue. Again, it's still way too early. We've seen guys look absolutely phenomenal before in their beginning starts and then kind of fade away as the season goes along. But look, Wacha's going to flirt with games like this. He's going to have a start like this or two. The question is just how consistent is it going to be? Is he now, when we play, I don't know, the Reds in a few weeks, is that when he's going to get lit up, right? Like, so there's still the question of that. There's still the question of health. But I like what I saw. And as a guy who might be your 4th or 5th starter, it was awesome to see. Like I said on the whiff generating stuff, guys were just not hitting his thing. And look, Braves hitters are good. Like, really, really good. So not giving up any runs and only 2 hits and only walking 1, 10 Ks, tying a career high. Really, really awesome stuff. Also worth noting in this game, Steven Wilson, 1 inning pitched. Have not talked about him enough. Hader has been good. So is Steven Wilson. He's got the potential. He was generating so many whiffs last year. He is just a whiff generator. He's awesome. I like Steven Wilson a lot. He might be the actual 3rd kind of head of this bullpen. I was theorizing in the preseason that it could be Drew Pomeranz, but him suffering a setback, again, I really do think whatever we get out of Pomeranz is gravy at this point. But Hader, Wilson, Suarez, I think those 3 might be like those 3 shutdown relievers that can make this bullpen awesome, which is why I'm not overreacting to it. I'd say for this episode, my overreactions would be Trent Grisham back, Seth Lugo is really good, and then also, what would be another one? I haven't talked about it much, but defense. There was an error actually made. I believe it was in the Friday game, actually. I don't remember exactly, but Xander Bogaerts on a relatively, routine ground out, overthrows the first baseman. It just takes him off the bag. Cronenworth off the bag, obviously. So that wasn't great. It was a pretty easy play. Look, Xander Bogaerts, incredible defender last year, but only last year. So I am wondering to see if that defense translates going forward. So yes, it is me kind of looking at just one play, but there's a precedent for it. So that's why I'm kind of I'm watching closely. You know what I mean? Like the way you watch Anthony Davis play basketball and you're just waiting to see, oh my God, is he going to get injured? I'm waiting to see, is Xander Bogaerts going to go back to the defensive player he was before? Hopefully not. Hopefully not for the Padres case, but also in this game, RBIs coming from Mr. Juan Soto, who hits a home run in this game. Again, he's been very all or nothing so far this year, which is a little bit rough to see, but he does hit a solo shot in the top of the third that kind of gave them the lead. It was a slow game. It was a boring game, to be quite honest with you. And even Charlie Morton, despite getting the loss in this game, I actually thought he pitched kind of okay. 3 walks and 6 Ks and 2 earned runs isn't great over 5 innings, but I actually thought he was okay for them. But yeah, not much to report there, guys. Overall, just a really good series. And this is a good Atlanta team, man. I mean, I think that they're arguably the best team in baseball, especially with Altuve and Verlander and some of those guys out for the Astros. So going in and winning 3 out of 4 after splitting both series against the D-backs and Rockies looks really good. I will say, I think the D-backs are just straight good. They pounded the Dodgers this weekend, which was wild. That offense of theirs is terrifying and fast and it's like watching those football offenses like Wildcat, you know what I mean? Like a Wildcat offense. That's what the Diamondbacks are kind of like outside of Evan Longoria or something like that, right? Like just a lot of speedster guys who are going to fight off pitches and everything. They're scrappy. I like that team. But yeah, I just think that this was an awesome series for the Padres. Still have a lot of concerns about the defense. Bullpen, it's been concerning, but I think that they're going to figure it out. If Chris Matt stinks, can bring up Groom. You're going to have Robert Suarez come back, right? Steven Wilson has been picking up the pace. So I'm not really worried about that. And then I guess the only thing that's really we're kind of waiting for is Soto. We're waiting for Soto and we're waiting for Musgrove to get back. Otherwise, I don't know. I just think that this team has been it's stumbled out of the gate. Like a false start. You know in Mario Kart when you hold down the A button too much when it's doing the countdown, you go, whoa, 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 you like kind of like overheat the engine. I think that's what happened for the Padres to start. There's 2 bad games against the Rockies. Soto and Manny look like they're a mess. You have all the defensive miscues. I think that the only thing to take away from it for me is the defense. I'm still worried about that. I still am. I don't think it's going to kill them, but I think it's worth pointing out, and defense translates over the course of a long season. You know what I mean? And once we get into the postseason, I don't really care. You know what I mean? As evidenced by the Philadelphia Phillies last year, who have like the worst defenders in baseball, I don't really care. But it is important. Are we going to get there? Right? So we'll see. We'll see. And I think it was also in this game, or was it in the Thursday game when Juan Soto made a really great catch, and he also had an error. So it's like, it's all over the place. It's a whole confusing game, much like this podcast, let me tell you. So I'm going to try and end this podcast right here, guys. We're going to be doing a crossover with my buddy Rylan Stiles, talking about, someone tweeted at me, let's talk about that minor leaguer who called our boy, the bobblehead guy right here, a cheater. We're going to be talking about that, as well as some general baseball stuff and any updates on the Royals and Padres. That should be a lot of fun, our weekly crossover that we like to do. And then for Wednesday's pod, going to be recapping tonight's game against the Mets and tomorrow's game against the Mets. And then Wednesday, Ryan Finkelstein is coming on the show, host of Locked On Mets, to do a recap of the full series. Unless I think of something else. I might do a pitching kind of breakdown for the whole Padres thing. I don't know exactly. But that's what basically you can expect this week. And then you got the Brewers coming up. So that should be a lot of fun. And hopefully you guys can look forward to it. Good times, guys. Good times and good vibes. I'm really pissed that I forgot to put Pac-Man here. I'm going to do that starting tomorrow. Even if Michael Wacha isn't pitching. I don't care. Should I save it for when Michael... This episode's going way too long. Guys, with that all being said... Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Locked On Padres podcast. Remember to follow me on Twitter at Javipeno, Javiipeno. Subscribe to the pod wherever you get your podcasts from. Locked On Padres on YouTube, at LO_Padres on Twitter. And until next time, stay safe and, of course, stay faithful. My Fire Faithful homies. Take care.